Farwiza, now, have you got up the top, it says share your screen? You've got that?
Oh, no, I need an extension for that.
Extension, share.
The entire screen. Share.
Hang on. No, it's coming. It's coming up now. So.
My share now loading, so I can just go to this.
There you are. There you are.
Does it work?
Yay, you're on. Hang on. Yep, you're on. I can see it. So, okay.
Okay. Awesome. Is everyone?
So let me.
It feels really weird.
Okay, I'm just going to introduce you quickly. So, thank you all for attending this webinar. Farwiza is one of my friends and one of my personal heroes in Indonesia, fighting for conservation of the Losa ecosystem protection, along with community preservation. Wiza is currently in Amsterdam doing her PhD and is currently researching the political economy of the natural resource management in Losa ecosystem of Aceh. She's currently also serving as the chairperson of the local organisation in Banda Aceh, Forest, Nature and Environment Aceh. So you may have recognised this on Facebook as HAKA. In Wiza's work, she mainly focuses on the elements of advocacy and policy campaigning, and she works very closely empowering local communities to strengthen their role in the forest protection and management of Losa. In 2016, Wiza was awarded the Whitley Award for her recognition of her project named Citizen Lawsuits and Defending the Local Livelihoods and Sumatra's Iconic Species in the Losa Ecosystem. So I'd like to now pass on to Wiza so she can give you her presentation on who she is and what she does and how fantastic she is. Thanks, Wiza.
Thanks for the glowing introduction, Jess.
Oh, you are amazing. Anyway.
Okay, so to be honest, this feels a bit funny that I can't really, see who you are, where you are, and I'm practically looking at my screen and imagining that you're on the other side of the screen listening to this. Right. My journey into conservation started gradually. It's not like this a click moment where I decide I'm going to turn into conservationist. It's something that happens slowly every day. I grew up quite close to nature. And at some point, I went snorkeling in Aceh when I was in high school. And when I went snorkeling, I was so amazed by the beautiful coral reef, by the rich marine life. And that's when I thought, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to be a marine biologist. I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to study this. And, I thought I have my life sorted out for me. But then as I grow into the journey of doing a marine biology degree, getting to know people, then I come back to the same place where I started to find that the reef has completely devastated, and it sort of create that trigger on me that I feel a bit upset. I can't accept this, but at the same time, I feel like there's something else that I need to do. There's something else that could give me, different kind of motivation, different kind of spirits. And being a female conservationist in Aceh, there's a mix. It's a mixed feelings. It's not incredibly hard, but it's also not incredibly easy. I guess most of you would understand that sometimes being a woman in the world filled with men could be quite challenging. But at the same time, being a conservationist itself is a challenging journey. As a woman in Aceh, for me, particularly it's relatively easy to follow my career ambition, my passion. I have a very supportive family. My parents never questioned these choices. They tend to support and let me continue doing what I do. But I do know that for a lot of other women out there, it's difficult even to argue with their family to go into university. And does Sharia law impact the future woman leader, or does it empower them? It could go both ways. For some who are religious, they could even see it in both directions. Like, for example, I have a friend who is very religious, but at the same time, a very strong feminist, a very strong woman who would take chances and march in the direction others wouldn't, other men and women wouldn't. But at the same time, someone who is not religious like me do face the challenges on I don't wear headscarf, and sometimes that become a trigger for argument. This picture, for example, last year when I won the Whitley Award, this picture gets circulated in the media, and then there's a whole section on the comment that goes, "Oh, she cannot be Achinese, she don't wear headscarf." But then at the same time, my friend who do know me, who do know that I'm a good person regardless, would respond to that and say, "Well, she didn't wear headscarf, but she's Achinese, and she's a good person." I feel this kind of contradiction create a new dialogue, a new conversation. And I do this work because for two reasons, love and anger. I fell in love with the wildlife in Loiser. I met this baby elephant when it was just 3 days old, and it's incredible when when you see this living creature is slightly different than you, but they're equally as amazing. I love the wildlife, and I also get really angry to see the habitat destroyed. To get to see the destruction firsthand, light up that spark of anger that pushed me in the direction that I'm taking. I remember one of my mentors used to ask me one morning. He asked, "Wiza, are you angry?" And I'm like, it was 7 a.m. I haven't had my coffee. I haven't even registered the word angry yet in my system. And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm all right." And she's like, "Well, if you're not angry, then you should be, because anger fuels revolution. You're just channeling your anger towards, good things." Another things that motivates me is the fact that I'm working with some of the bravest and the most dedicated people. This is just a fraction of our ranger team. Some of them have been working to protect Loiser for the past 20, 30 years of their life. Also, working closely with the local community. This is a picture of us in court and dismantling that fear of legal system. Sometimes we fear something that we don't understand. For a lot of these community members, going to court is a very scary thought. But once we start doing it, we start getting used to it. Through this process, we learn that the justice system could be made to work in our favor. It might not always work, but sometimes just a pathway that we need to take. Another thing that another personal challenges that I face, as I mentioned earlier, Aceh is a very patriarchal society. It is something that I assume people around the world, women around the world, are still facing. How I am a leader of this organization that mostly filled with men, and like it or not, sometimes they have to listen to me. But at the same time, that element of patriarchy and misogyny do play into a role when a local woman come up with a decision, or a white man trying to lead or take over the decision making. There are differences, and sometimes it's a battle that I'm still facing every day. But at the end of the day, it's not untackleable. I'm also quite lucky that the men that is working within the organization do believe in democratic decision making. Although sometimes I do need to talk through a problem over and over with them before they understand. Like, for example, part of my role is talking and lobbying political figures. And in that process, again, most of these male political figures do take a fancy on me. And that's quite uncomfortable and unpleasant because I would like to keep the relationship professional. And in those instances, sometimes I'll try to hand over the responsibility to others, or I'll try to we work around it in different ways. And sometimes the people within my team don't even see that as an issue. They see it as a joke. They see it as because probably it's something that they never experienced, so they don't quite get this kind of misogynistic attitude. Another thing that sometimes I still deal with is depression. Of course, a whole lot of us do experience, good days, bad days, winning, setback. Sometimes we must accept defeat, and I'm not always that happy, super energized person, that we put out in the social media. And this is really not easy to talk about it. But I get to a point that I recognize the symptoms of depression. I sort of frame it in the framework of resilience. Sometimes when we are happy and strong, we could take on any challenges. You could throw anything at me and I'll be fine and I'll stand back up. But then when you're feeling depressed, even the smallest of challenges, sometimes even like, when your colleague question the outcome of your work, it feels a whole lot more than what it actually is. And to me, knowing that this period will pass, knowing that, if there's any negative thought, then I don't act on it. Just trying to be patient with myself, just trying to exercise that self-compassion really helps. And of course, I'm a little bit stubborn. I could only do the work that I do because I insist, because I persist, even when there's so many challenges from the outside and even from my own self. We are our biggest critics, but at the same time, persist. It's a persistent pace. I know for the longest of time that I'm not the smartest kid in class, but I could work a little bit harder than everyone else. Maya Angelou, one of my favorite poets, put it really well, that if you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. To a large extent, we are all normal and abnormal. We are strange and quirky in our own different way. And I learned to appreciate myself in that way. I guess when I was younger, I would try so hard to fit in. I would try just, I would not say no so much. But now I'm at the point of my life where I appreciate myself enough and I love myself enough to say no to things, including when my friend invite me to drink beer and I don't like drinking beer. I want to drink gin and tonic. So I told my friend that, no, you can't bully me into drinking these things, for example. And the last thing that have really helped me in so many ways in for so long is the to grow a support system. So many times throughout not only the journey of the career but the study life, to have that strong support system that you could go back to, that you could fall back on, is so helpful. It's so important. So much of my success is could be attributed to people that have my back, no matter what. It gives me the confidence to go forward, knowing that they will be there. And of course, to have friends who are genuine and equal to you, people who appreciate you for whoever you are, not trying to bring you down, trying to support you, but at the same time, they'll remember to um, remind you when you feel when you start being, well, I mean, I don't know if there's another more appropriate word. If you start being a dick, you know what I mean? Um, having this kind of friends around you, having this kind of support system, family, sisters, even your brother and your father, as well as your partner, to have that support system. And this is the last word. I borrowed this from the other Future for Nature award winner because she's really good with puns. But then she did say that the biggest environmental problem we are facing right now is not climate change, it's apathy. And it is so true. So often it's to grow that passion, to grow that compassion, because our problem is not only an environmental problem. We have social justice issues. We have, inequality issues. But then none of this would move anywhere unless, we put time and energy and trying to change the things that we can change. That's it.
Thanks, Weezer. That was fantastic. Thanks for your time. Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to ask Weezer? I can yeah. There's a few claps there, Weezer, saying congratulations on it. I have a question for you, just while we're waiting. You talked about having a strong network and having people that that you look towards because it's so important. Can you who do you look up to? Who do you see as an aspiring role model in the industry that you feel, in your opinion, doing a great job, and someone that you look at as they're courageous, they're strong, brave?
We all have different people for different things. I mean, for example, sometimes in facing patriarchy and misogyny, there are two people that I would reach out to. One is Rina Mutia and the other one is Emma Baker.
Yeah.
They understand and speak my language, and sometimes I just need to rant to them.
Yeah.
And they would get it. Mm-hmm. They would be supportive. They would never say, this is just you being sensitive. Not once.
Yeah.
And through doing that, it helped me sort of face the bigger challenges.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm facing difficulties, PhD, for example, then I could reach out to Jane Dunlop.
Yeah.
She's an epic book reader.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to have all these different individuals around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. And so she'd be almost like your mentor, is that right? Sort of someone you reach out to, sort of seek advice from?
Yeah, to a degree. There's also, I mean, I have a long list of names of people that I will reach out to, including you, Jess.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because and in terms of the work that you're doing, a lot of people ask how, how can they get involved, what should they do, and we see a lot of what's happening with the LoSA ecosystem on Facebook and some of the campaigns that do come out. What is like one single action that these girls could take away today, so they can continue to support you and your journey and what you're doing as well? Yeah.
There's this, my advice might not be the most practical because I've always tell everyone to self-educate so you get to understand the issues, and once you do that, grow that network of awareness and that ability to take action, because this fundamentally change everything. If you care about something, then your action would be sort of based on that understanding. Although sometimes I could just say, oh, join an organization or donate or something along those lines, but then that's too short-sighted. There's another question, and I'd rather go on the fundamental of change the paradigm, your paradigm, and people around you, and that's how we lead change all around the world. I guess once upon a time, slavery was illegal, and I don't know if anyone here don't support LGBT rights, for example. That kind of movement started maybe 50, 100 years ago to change the game on how people perceive people of color and people of different sexual orientation. But that kind of paradigm shift happened slowly and hopefully on the broader network, long persistence.
Yeah, I feel like it's a long journey in conservation. It's not just something you decide for a few years and then that's it. I think that it is a long-term commitment, and something that I mean, hats off to you for leading that movement as well. And I mean, it was always there. It's just revitalizing that and being a strong figure at the front. So yeah, we have a message from Jenna. How do you cope when you feel overwhelmed by what's happening around you, when it's like, oh shit, this is such a horrible situation for the people and the animals? Do you always focus on the big picture and go from there, or do you take smaller steps and smaller wins to feel like you're supporting the animals in the future, people?
Well, I mean, I'm going to give you a very honest, non-diplomatic answer. I take a time out. A whole lot of things could be very overwhelming, and I don't always feel like I could deal with it. I could cope with it, or I could even do anything. Sometimes there are times when I feel quite powerless. But then there is recognizing that pattern. When I have the tendency that when I feel on top of the world, I don't remember what it's like to be at the bottom. At the same time, when I feel like I'm at the bottom, I don't remember what it's like to be able to do things and to conquer things and get things done. But being patient with yourself, knowing that there's a lot of challenges out there, and it's not all your responsibility to deal with things. We could only give as much as we have, and understanding that space within ourselves, that we are well enough to do more and to look after yourself before you try to look after others.
Correct. Very true. We also have one more question answers by Kelly. She said, "You're amazing." And how did you know where to start all this?
I know where to what?
How did you know where to start in your career and what you're doing now? It was.
I don't.
Love it. Yeah.
I take opportunities. I follow what come up in front of me, and sometimes, like when we created Haka, I was not prepared to be the chairperson. But then I picked that on anyway. I was, what was it, 26 or 27 at the time, or maybe even younger. And people that I've worked with has been working in Loiser for 15, 20 years. They're all very, that kind of individual that's quite mature and sometimes strong in their opinion. We do have an election at the time to elect a leader, and everyone choose me because maybe I'm a bit crazy in that sense. But yeah, I don't always know where to start. For me, conservation is not a career. It's an activism. It's something that I would do with or without the job, something that I would do with or without the payment, and something that I would do with or without the recognition. And to allow that passion drive you, it would take you places that you'd never know, where you'd go. It's not necessarily that I have a plan, in 5 or 10 years, I'll be working in this and working on that. I'll be having this career or getting that kind of salary. No, I just go on doing what I love the most.
Brilliant. Does anyone else have any questions for Farwiza? Yeah, we've got one message. So this is from Mariani. So Mariani is working in Malaysia. She's actually trying to set up a gibbon sanctuary and getting it through the whole political process. So she has a question. How do you handle senior conservationists that ask you to be more political, like closing one eye when you know that there's something like animal cruelty happening in front of you? Your team members asked you what to do as a leader, while the senior conservationists ask you to be silent about it. If you do not follow what the seniors say, will your team lose support?
It's actually a very difficult but a very practical question. And it happened quite a lot. There's these things that I try to always involve people in decision making so they understand that journey that you go through, because you always get these kind of challenges. There's also a set of priority, there's hard choices that sometimes you have to make. And at any given time, this is when it's so important to have your team with you, understanding why you take the step that you take, understanding that maybe if they are in your position, they probably would do the same thing. And when it comes to choices between, senior conservationists or your team asking for leadership, it's not always in your shoulder to have all the answers in the world. You'd never know that sometimes out of, again, asking your mentors, your friends, they might have ideas, or asking your team what would be their perspective on things. There are always creative ways to find solutions. Like, for example, sometimes we try to do more that goes beyond our job desk, and that could put us in trouble. But from time to time, that kind of passion that drives you into this job overtake the kind of logic that you should have, that the senior conservationists have. It's also possible that you remind that senior conservationists why they do what they do. To an extent, trust that they have experience that they gain over time, but that also at the same time, take it with a grain of salt, because the kind of experience that they have might no longer be applicable to the current situation.
Yeah. Okay, one more. We've got another question from Sam. As a mature age student, sometimes I feel I have left it too late to follow my conservation dreams. I worry I won't be able to get a job. What are some of the sacrifices that you've had to make? And by the way, I love the "don't be a dick" comment. So yeah, everyone really does, make sacrifices in the industry. So what have you sacrificed?
Well, to me, the biggest sacrifice is love life. My love life is currently non-existent. But there's a story. About 4 years ago. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was with this man that I truly love, and he's an amazing human being. But there was also the time when I set up Haka. This person lives on the other side of the planet, and we can't be together physically. And mentally, I'm also, not always there for him. So he's going through weird depression, and it was really hard for me trying to look after my team, trying to make sure that everyone get paid, and trying to look after a relationship. Eventually, I have to give up that relationship. I have to let go and said, well, maybe we should pursue our happiness independently. And that's what I did. And I never regret that, not once. It's just that something to look back and think, I do love you, but I love Loiser more. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
And if you're scared that you won't be able to get a job, I had that fear when I started. My dad asked me, what is your plan? What do you want to do for your life? And to a large extent, I don't really know. When I began my study as a biologist, all I wanted just to go diving a lot. Eventually, this kind of passion, take me in this direction, and I keep following it on. Sometimes tackling on challenges that I didn't thought I could cope with, I could handle with. When they put me in a situation of full of bullying opponents, or when the situation put me in court against palm oil company, and it's not always something that I have planned for. Life is a lot on taking chances, but at the same time also seeing that having a priority, knowing that is this something that I would put my time on or not. At the end of the day, there are countless people who change career when they are in their 40s, when they are in their late 40s, and turn into something else. And it's never too late to follow your passion. It's part of a self-appreciation. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go on with it, with or without money. Maybe there's a bit of a luxury that living on the borderline of poverty, thinking this is not such a bad life.
Yeah, I think all of us are like that, don't you think? Yeah. And Katie's got a question for you. These are great questions. How do you handle being a female in a male-dominated field? And what are some of the challenges you've encountered, and how do you overcome them?
It depends. Also, it depends on the male. Some of the male are very dominating, and they try to sort of, just smash you and
ego.
Yeah, sometimes that big ego is quite a lot. But your male counterpart is also a human being. They have female in their life that they look up to, that they respect, maybe that at least maybe they try to protect. I tend to try to see that element in people, that that aspect that they are human being, and communicate through to them in that sense. Of course, there are times when I snap in the meetings to my male colleagues. It happens. But there are also times when I, take a step back and listen to what they have to say and filter through, is this advice real or is it out of ego? And respond to it depending on the situation.
Yeah. Okay. Cal, I'll get back to you about the social media sites on where to find What Weezer supports and how to help out there. So that I can do later date. A message from Rebecca. What's happening with the GRAM case now, and is there anything that we can do to support it?
The GRAM case is still ongoing. We are currently appealing. The appeal process doesn't take a lot of going back and forth to court. It's only the judges looking at the lawsuit and the evidence and everything that we put forward in the previous case, see if the can hold up. But beyond that, we are also rebuilding political alliances because now the political landscape has changed. So we try to encourage the spatial plan to change on different different pathway, different mechanism. One of the reasons why we run GRAM is to make sure that the spatial plan issue doesn't become forgotten. It's one of the least sexy conservation issue. It doesn't quite have, this kind of very appealing images of people fighting against regulation. But at the same time, it's so important because it's underpins a whole lot of our conservation work. And GRAM is one of the ways to make sure that policymakers and people in general doesn't forget about it.
Yeah. Okay. Just wrapping up this webinar, I got one more question from Layla. She says, I often feel selfish by putting animals in what I do before people, including friends and family. Do you ever feel guilty for putting your career first? And how do you deal with this?
Your male colleague wouldn't feel this way, would you? Would they?
No.
It's similar to the question of
yeah.
Someone used to say that I'm overly humble in attributing my success to my mentors and my support network, which I think is true, which I think, it's not that I'm overly humble, but it's true that a whole lot of my success is attributed to all those people around me. At the same time, someone used to say, a man would not say that. A man would just claim everything that they deserve it. But I don't quite feel guilty for loving what I do. When it comes to, I'm quite lucky that I have very supportive family and friends. But if I don't have time to, listen to all of their problems, because, I'm mentally occupied with other things, I also recognize that they might not have time for me when I have issues to work through. It's creating that priority. At the same time, at work, it's not like you have to do everything and handle everything. You have trust in your team that they could also tackle on the challenges. Finding that balance. It's quite cliche, but it's also very true for me. There are times when I can't attend, important family gathering because I'm on the other side of the planet or I'm busy with conferences. But then making that phone call to your parents, to your friends, and knowing the people that are important to you and valuing them like they are, and the number of people that deserve that kind of mental space and time might be limited but they're definitely worth it. So I don't necessarily feel like I put my career first all the time. I'm simply driven by passion for things that I feel important. And if it's the person on the other side of the phone who is crying, or if it's this wildlife that needs first response.
Yeah, it's a good balance. Okay, guys. Is there anything lastly you'd like to say, Riza, before we wrap this up?
No. I was listening to a podcast the other day on economics. The podcast interviewed the president of the World Bank. And the president of the World Bank was giving a lecture in a class somewhere in a primary school in Latin America. And then he asked the students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And one of the students said, I want to be the president of the World Bank. And as you know, as expected, his peers, his friend, his teacher, and the entourage laughed on that answer. And then the president of the World Bank said, look, I grew up in South Korea, and in the time when I grew up, South Korea is a very poor country. If the president of the World Bank at that time come to my class, he wouldn't expect that the next president of the World Bank would be in that class. So you never know who's gonna become what, and if anyone here become the next conservation leader, I'll just be very happy to have participated, even in the tiniest, slightest amount to that, hopefully.
Thank you, Riza. Thank you.
Okay.
We are, of course, in April next year, we are looking at going on our retreat in Indonesia, so the girls will get together. And of course, you're invited to that retreat. So I will send you details to see if you can get that time off so you can also meet the girls. So it'll be over 3 days that we'll put some of the top female leaders within Indonesia together. So I'll chat to you more about that. Yay. But thank you so much for your time, Riza. It's really appreciative. Thank you for everyone for attending, and good luck with everything. And we look forward to following your inspiring journey.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for making time.
No, thank you. Thank you. Okay. See you. Bye.